Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as I predicted, Omicron, the new variant of coronavirus, has moved into Australia. It took one day for me to be proven right because the variant was actually found in South Africa from some amazing genome sequencing down there by the scientists in South Africa. And then it was also found in Belgium, Israel, and Hong Kong. And I said it won't take long for it to get to Australia. And it's been detected in Australia from a flight that came on Saturday night, November 27. We're going to take a look at the New South Wales Health media release because they would have flown in to Sydney Airport. And then we're going to go through what the doctors and people who have been on the scene first have been saying about this variant and how maybe overblown it has been from shutting down borders from African countries where this is coming from when it's already in several other countries like European nations and Asian nations. We'll see if it's been overblown and what these effects are from this variant. So let's first take a look at the New South Wales Health media release. So here it is from New South Wales Health, 28th November. Omicron variant confirmed in New South Wales cases. New South Wales Health can confirm urgent genomic testing undertaken today shows 2 overseas travellers have been infected with the new Omicron B11529 COVID-19 variant of concern. So both passengers came to Sydney from Southern Africa on the evening of Saturday, November 27. They underwent testing on arrival and tested positive for COVID-19 late last night. 2 positive cases were asymptomatic, so no symptoms visible, are in isolation in the special health accommodation, so health hotels. Both people are fully vaccinated. So that's one of the keys there. So because we'll be able to see how it affects people compared to being vaccinated and unvaccinated. So the 2 passengers were among 14 people from Southern Africa who arrived on Qatar Airways, which arrived 7 p.m. Saturday, 27 November. The remaining 12 passengers from Southern Africa are undertaking 14 days of hotel quarantine in a special health accommodation. So anyone on that flight, passengers, crew, are considered close contacts and have been directed to isolate. This was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so this was just before the flight came in. Australia has suspended flights from 9 Southern African countries and closed its borders to any foreign nationals who have been to the region, amid concern about the emerging COVID-19 variant of concern, Omicron. So this was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, and then the flight came in, it says 7 p.m, so about 3 hours later. So obviously the plane was already in the air, so they were going to let it land and then test the people, and they came back positive. But now the restrictions have been in place, so now people from these African countries cannot come into Australia. The announcement made by the Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt on Saturday afternoon followed travel restrictions imposed by the United States, UK, and European Union. So now we have locked out or restricted 9 African countries, and Australians attempting to return home from that region will be allowed in the country, but ordered into mandatory hotel quarantine, which is what we just showed. This new variant has done exactly what I thought it would, with governments from my country and other countries saying we need to lock out people from regions where this new variant could have a terrible, devastating effect. And now what's that done? Not just the EU and all that. Mark McGowan, the Premier of Western Australia, who has rarely let people into his state for the last 2 years, honestly, since this whole thing's been going on, has said he won't hesitate to keep the borders closed if the new strain emanating from Southern Africa puts the health of Western Australians at risk. Rarely anyone can go in and out of Western Australia, because there was a joke about how people can travel to the UK before they can travel to Western Australia because of how locked down WA has been to the rest of the country of Australia. He said all flights from those regions have now been suspended. There's a great deal of uncertainty about the recently emerged Omicron variant, so it's important WA has strong protections in place for states which have relaxed their international borders. We have now shut down travel from those countries where it's come from. And now he's trying to blame New South Wales, saying we no longer have a hotel quarantine system, but we just showed in that last article that people are in hotel quarantine. He says it's a big risk, and that's why we have a very cautious approach about other states. So that's Mark McGowan there, continuing his hard border lockdown from anyone else outside of his state, WA. Let's look at why people might be having the reaction they are to this. Because John Byrne Murdoch, who's a statistician at the Financial Times, he released an image of collating the data on how transmissible this new Omicron variant is as opposed to Delta and Beta. Here's what he's put. A new variant is spreading rapidly in South Africa and appears to be outcompeting other variants much faster than previous variants of concern did. Now, if you want to talk about the other variants that exist, we've got the Alpha variant, which was from the UK. Then we had another Beta variant, which was also from South Africa. And then there was the Gamma from Brazil. And then the Delta, which started in India. But there are a couple others. There's the Lambda as well. That's how many variants there are. Now this one, its transmissibility rating, look at this. So there's the beta strain. There's the delta strain. That's what everyone was so worried about because it was a lot more transmissible than other strains than the original. Now look at this one. This new one in red, this Omicron is absolutely so much more transmissible than Delta. So cause for concern? Potentially. So that's transmissibility, but let's take a look at what people on the ground have been saying about this new variant in South Africa. So this is on the Telegraph. South African doctor who raised alarm about Omicron variant says symptoms are unusual but mild. Dr. Angelique Coetzee noticed otherwise healthy patients showing unusual symptoms and worries how the new variant might hurt the elderly. They're talking more about how elderly unvaccinated patients may react to this new variant. But if you're talking about vaccinated people and children, let's look at what it says. Dr. Angelique Coetzee said she was first alerted to the possibility of a new variant when patients in her busy private practice in the capital Pretoria started to come in earlier this month with COVID-19 symptoms that did not make immediate sense. Because everything that we've heard about what's COVID done, lose your sense of taste and smell, you could feel nauseous and all these other things. But here's what this new variant is doing to people. They included young people of different backgrounds and ethnicities with intense fatigue. So people are just really tired. And a 6-year-old with a very high pulse rate. She said none suffered from a loss of taste or smell, which is one of the other symptoms from the original strain and other variants. She said their symptoms were so different and so mild to those I had treated before. And on November 18, when 4 family members all tested positive for COVID-19 with complete exhaustion, she informed the country's vaccine advisory committee. So it's just people are coming in and they're absolutely exhausted. It's just fatigue. She said in total, about 24 of her patients have tested positive for COVID-19 with symptoms of the new variant. They were mostly healthy men who turned up feeling so tired. About half of them were unvaccinated. So you got half of them unvaccinated, half vaccinated, roughly. Mostly healthy men turned up feeling so tired. So basically fatigue is a new symptom for this one. And then this is an interesting one. She said we had one very interesting case, a kid about 6 years old with a temperature and a very high pulse rate. And I wondered if I should admit her. But when I followed up 2 days later, she was so much better. Even though this new strain might be more transmissible than anything else we've seen, which may have been a cause for concern now in the first couple of days of realizing it, but what it's actually doing to people, initially it looks like it's only making people fatigued and maybe a bit of a high pulse rate, but a couple of days later, according to this doctor with this one child, a couple of days later, she was much better. And then she goes into how it could affect older people who have comorbidities such as diabetes or heart disease, and it could make it much harder for these people with these previous illnesses. So we know with vaccines, it doesn't stop transmission of the virus. It just doesn't. There are cases like nearly every day of people who have caught the virus while after being vaccinated. But what it does do from a lot of the data is stops the severe effects of COVID, and it's more likely to keep you out of hospital. So if people have these comorbidities such as diabetes or heart disease, and then they unvaccinated on top of that, and with the age of these people as well, this could potentially be more severe for them, which is what she says. What we have to worry about now is that when older unvaccinated people are infected with the new variant, and if they're not vaccinated, we are going to see many people with a severe form of the disease. Take that into account. People with comorbidities and age could potentially have a more severe form of it. This is that doctor there. Now this is on the New York Post. They said, here's a quote. She says, it presents mild disease with symptoms being sore muscles and tiredness for a day or two, not feeling well. So far, we've detected that those infected do not suffer the loss of taste or smell, which I said before. They might have a slight cough. There are no prominent symptoms. Of those infected, some are currently being treated at home. So apparently, this is not even going to overwhelm the hospital system, which is what people would be fearing at the moment, and why they are locking people out from these countries of where this variant is coming from. And she's saying some people are currently being treated at home, not even in the hospital, and it's mild symptoms. So hopefully this new variant stays this way and doesn't cause too much damage, even if it is more transmissible. Hopefully it's not lethal, like I said in my last video. Hopefully it stays mild with people's symptoms and it's not a vicious strain that causes severe health implications. This is on BBC. So the World Health Organization said it would take a few weeks to understand the impact of the new variant, which yeah, it will. And then a top UK health official warned that vaccines would almost certainly be less effective against the new variant. I don't know how he says that. I don't know how he comes to that conclusion, because according to the symptoms that we just saw, it's not much cause for concern at the moment. But we'll find out obviously in the next few weeks. And then Professor James Naismith, a structural biologist from the University of Oxford, added, "It's bad news, but not doomsday." I think everyone's basing it, look, I'm not a doctor, but I think everyone's basing it, this initial reaction and maybe potentially overreaction, on the transmissibility with this spike rate here, ability to be transmissible between people, and its ability to bind to people so quickly with its extra binding receptors and its spike proteins, which are double the amount of Delta. And then there's just another quote from that doctor, Dr. Angelique. "Patients are mostly complaining about a sore body and tiredness, extreme tiredness, and we see it in the younger generation. It's not the older people. We're not talking about patients that might go straight to a hospital and be admitted." According to this doctor, it's not going to put extra strain on the health system in these countries, or any country that it goes to, hopefully. And then South Africa accuses the UK and others of a knee-jerk reaction to the new variant, and they're angrily condemning travel restrictions imposed by countries including Britain as knee-jerk and draconian, as it scrambled to assess the potential for new COVID variant to unleash a deadly fourth wave. The wording here, deadly fourth wave, I think that's a bit overstating it on the information we have right now. It says the reaction of countries to impose travel bans are completely against the norms and standards of World Health Organization. Same countries are enacting this kind of knee-jerk draconian reaction are battling their own waves. Yes, some European countries like Austria now are in another full-on lockdown, and no people are allowed at any events and everything. Everyone's at home to try and get the vax rate up. Now, one last thing is Pfizer has said it could have an Omicron vaccine within 100 days. Now, I guess Pfizer's trying to come out in front and say, well, we're going to have the first new vaccine for this new variant, even when its symptoms are mild. So I don't know what this new vaccine is going to do. If it's supposed to diminish the harmful effects of COVID, well, that's kind of already working with the other vaccines. So why would you need to implement a separate vaccine for something that has extra mild symptoms? And a child was into the doctor, and then 2 days later they were gone because of a high pulse rate, and they didn't have it 2 days later. And a bunch of young healthy men, they were just fatigued and tired. So I don't know what this new vaccine is for. We'll find out. I think it's just to maybe line some pockets. Do they really need a new vaccine? Well, we'll see. At the moment, I don't see the reason why, if the symptoms are so mild from this new variant. But I mean, if it changes, sure. So there's a breakdown of all the information we all have at the moment on this new variant, Omicron. We'll see what's going to happen in the next few days to weeks if this variant takes off and mutates again, and then maybe it turns into the worst thing ever. Maybe it stays mild. People with a bit of fatigue and a bit of high heart rate. We can only wait and find out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this one out, and I'll see you in the next one.